You set me on fire, striking a match on our lips, hot like June.
Oh my God. Okay, wow. The microphone is actually on. I'm sitting here. The little red light of the camera's on. Everything's going. Guys, welcome to Mad Woman, the podcast. I'm your host, Domenica Calarco. I can't wait to take you on this journey with me. Let's get started. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Mad Woman, the podcast. I'm your host, Domenica Calarco. Thanks for being here with me today. Wow, guys, what a week it has been. I feel like I started our last week's episode like this, but it's been another week. I just want to say thank you so much, number one, for being here and being a listener. It's amazing that we're on this journey together. I'm so excited. But thank you for everyone who sent across a message of support and for listening to last week's episode where I opened up about everything that happened with Sit With Us and I guess my very public friendship breakdown. It was a lot to record that episode. It was very exhausting. I remember listening back to it after I recorded and it was really emotional listening back. And then I guess when it went out to the world, knowing that everyone would be able to, hear my side of the truth, because I know that there are two sides, and I guess I wanted to come on here and just talk about that. I made it pretty clear in the episode that that was, my side of things and how it made me feel, and that was what the episode was about. So I'm just really happy that it's out there in the world and that laid to bed and put to rest all of those assumptions and what everyone had in their mind of what happened in the situation. So I'm glad that that's laid to rest now and put to bed, whatever you want to call it. It's like a massive weight has lifted off my shoulders, having that out in the world. I think after everything kind of fell apart and I was going through that period of healing and change, everything felt upside down, and I feel like everything now is leveled out, and to have that huge thing off my chest, it's I feel so much lighter and better, and I'm just so grateful that you guys gave me the space and the time to gather my thoughts and figure out a way that I wanted to address it. And I'm just so happy that it's out there. So amongst all of that, my renovations are still going. I finally have water in my kitchen and drainage. Shout out to my dad, who's a licensed plumber, who has been taking the longest to do anything. I think because he's so content with just being like, oh yeah, everything else is done. I'll come in when everything else is done. And it's like, I just want things done now. I'm definitely of that generation that wants things done here and now. But I tell you what, there is nothing like a woman who wants something done to get the trades done. Like I'm like, Tyler in, grout done. Yes, yes, yes. Like I want to be able to, set myself up, set my kitchen out, my bathroom. Renovations. Oh my God. I don't know how those people on the block do it. I think I would have another nervous breakdown if I was on the block. So I mean, look, if the producers hit me up to do the block, I maybe do it with Jared. I don't know. But I tell you what, doing renovations and being under time constraints and also budget, like, oh my God, shit is expensive, guys. Like far out. It's, as much as moving back home has been amazing, there are so many things that have been quite stressful. Amongst renovating, launching a podcast, moving houses, I'm also working on two other very exciting things that I get to launch, and I can't wait to talk about it. I hate being that person being like, stay tuned, something's coming, but I don't want to spoil it. Do you know what I mean? And I'm still in the process of figuring shit out and how I'm going to launch these things. So you will see it very, very soon, and I can't wait for you guys to see that. Speaking of living in the bush, guys, I am on tank water here. Okay, so I have a 12,500 litre tank. We only currently have one tank for this house. So every toilet flush, every time you wash your hands, every dish you wash has to be thought out. Every second in the shower has to be thought out now. So gone are the days of just standing in the shower and feeling that hot water. I'm like, no, bitch. 5 minutes is a long shower. I'm in there for 1 minute and I'm like, have I washed my underarms? Like, wash your pits and your bits and, seriously, it's like that. So that's one thing I'm really thinking of a lot now that I'm living here and on tank water. So every second of, it's all has to be thought out, which is, a little bit of added stress to things. But being in nature and being here and hearing the birds, I got this new app the other day where you kind of record bird sounds and it tells you what bird it is, because I'm hearing all different kinds of birds here and it's amazing. I'm learning so much about different bird species. There's a bird that's laying a nest in the front jasmine bush out the front of my house, which is amazing. I'm like, oh my God, every day is like this new thing. I'm seeing kangaroos. We've also got a wallaby that lives out the front, who, if you guys have been following on the Blue House page, it'll be all linked in the show notes and you can find it on my Instagram as well. But I'm posting everything about, a city girl moving back out bush. It's kind of my lifestyle at the moment. So I've actually got a wombat living in my front yard. He's been coming out in the day, but turns out he's got scabies. And when I posted a video of Wally the wombat, as I've aptly called him, a lot of people were commenting saying he's got scabies, you've got to call wires out, like you need to find his hole. I'm learning so much, guys. Like, wombats can get scabies and it's poor thing, he's like itching himself, he doesn't look very happy, he looks scared. I don't know, look, I don't know what a wombat is meant to do, poor thing. They walk very slow, they're quite cute, but I feel sorry for Wally because he looks pretty uncomfortable. So I've got to try and figure out what I can do, get wires out here, try and put something in his hole so he can get better. Also, the other day when I was leaving the property, there's a keypad to like open the gate. Anyway, as I went to go and touch the keys of the little keypad, there was a redback spider on it. And I was like, welcome to the fucking outback, Domenica. Like, if that doesn't get more Australian than a redback on the keypad to try and leave the property. So I was like, yeah, welcome back out west, Domenica. Welcome back out west. Now, for today's episode, guys, I am sticking to the theme. We're all about self-development at the moment. This is on the journey. I guess I'm taking you guys on the journey with me that I've been on for the last 5 to 6 months. And the things that have helped me, I guess, get to the person that I am today, which is much more like I'm calmer. I think I'm a lot more rational. And a few people have been commenting saying that the less swearing, Domenica, they're really liking this. And I agree. I think in last week's episode, there was a few little F's in there. Just because I actually, listening back to that episode, I could feel myself getting heightened emotions again. So I do apologize for the swearing. I am trying. I am actively trying to swear less, I promise. There still will be a few fucks in there because, it wouldn't be me talking without a few fucks. Today, we're talking about a powerful yet simple concept that can totally change how you approach life. And that is your circles of control. So what exactly are these circles and how can they help us live a more fulfilled, stress-free life? So I like to imagine it, obviously, you can picture a circle, what's inside that circle and what is outside. In the middle of that circle, you have the things that you can control, okay? Your actions, your thoughts, your attitudes. Now, outside of that circle, you have the things you can't control that are other people's behaviors, the weather, global events, the fact that Donald Trump is the president of the United States again, all that crap. The idea behind circles of control is all about recognizing what's within your power to influence and what isn't. So focusing your energy where it matters most. on the stuff you can actually control. I'm going to tie that all into, boundaries and all the way that you can, work on your circles of control. But first, I want to talk about the let them theory, because this ties in a lot with circles of control. I have never been big into like the self-help sphere of the world. But I guess my TikTok has kind of taken me on that journey over the last few months. And Mel Robbins is someone who's really popped up a lot on my feed. And I've really enjoyed hearing her speak. And I know she has a really amazing podcast and a book. And speaking of books, she actually has a new book on the let them theory. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that today because it's really, really interesting. So I wanted to talk about the let them theory before we get into circles of control, because I really think that they tie in perfectly. So what is the let them theory? The let them theory is all about setting boundaries and letting go of the need to control or fix other people's behaviors. The second we do this, guys, the more fulfilled life and happier life we lead. It's the idea that instead of stressing over how others act or trying to change them, you focus on what you can control, your own reactions, choices, and energy. If someone isn't treating you the way you want or isn't living up to your expectations, the theory encourages you to simply let them be who they are without letting their actions negatively impact your peace of mind. In short, let them be, let them do, and focus on taking care of yourself first and foremost. The let them theory is about accepting the limits of your influence, and in doing so, freeing yourself from unnecessary stress. If you just take a moment right now and think about how much of your stress in your day to day has stemmed from other people, it'll really put into perspective how using the let them theory will really add so much to your life. The more you practice letting people be, the more you realize that trying to control them only leaves you frustrated. And in turn, this is just going to make you drained, stressed out, anxious, not living a fulfilled life, guys. By shifting the focus to your own actions and choices, you open up space for peace, authenticity, and emotional growth. A big part of my change this year and going through that tumultuous period of my life, it really opened up that space that we're talking about right here for me to actually figure out what I care about, what my values are, and therefore enabled me to really lean into that emotional growth. And I had so much emotional growth that I had to go through. I have seen such huge emotional growth in the last 6 months, and it's wild to see. I was just going through, my phone, photos and memories. I really love doing that every so often, and just to see, I guess, the change that I've gone through, not only like physically, like with my hair and all of that kind of stuff, but I can just see in my face the growth, like the happiness and the just how much softer I am. So I really want to get into now what these circles are and how they can help us live a more fulfilled and stress-free life, okay? So imagine a circle. In the middle of that circle, you have the things you can control, right? And everything else we can't control. All of that stuff that we can't touch, we can't change. And the sooner that we realize that, the better and more fulfilled, stress-free life we can lead. The idea behind circles of control is all about recognizing what's within your power to influence and what isn't, and focusing your energy where it matters most, on the stuff you can control. So, first and foremost, a big part of this is boundaries. And guys, boundaries was something I had not 1 ounce of in my life. Whether that be in my romantic relationships, my friendships, even in my family life. I think, seeing my mum, my nonna, other women growing up in, an Italian Australian household, there's a lot of that influence from that Italian culture. And I know a lot of my listeners can relate to this because I know a lot of you guys come from European backgrounds. There's not really any boundaries when it comes to women and their families. We are kind of programmed, even as women in general, regardless of what background you're from, that we have to put everyone else before ourselves. And the second I realized that this was really draining my energy and making me depressed, it was adding to my depression and my anxiety. The second I realized that putting everyone else first before me was detrimental to my, quality of life, the moment I changed that, the second I started living a more fulfilled and happier life. And this doesn't mean that I'm selfish and, don't care about anyone else. It couldn't be further from the truth. You've got to fit your life jacket before you fit anyone else's. And if you aren't living a happy, fulfilled life, how can you then add to others? And I am all about caring for my loved ones, my friends. I've lived my life putting everyone first. The second that I took back that control and thought, okay, if I'm not happy, if I'm not leading a stress-free, happy life, how can I then project that and help those around me live the same life? It just can't happen. So this is where boundaries really come into play. And in my 21 days on the ward this year, we actually had whole group therapy sessions about boundaries. And it was so eye-opening to me. I actually have a whole folder from hospital all about boundary setting and how this practice of boundaries is the first step really in acknowledging where your anxieties stem and how you can actually work on that anxiety. For me, not having any boundaries was just adding to my anxiety. Everything was getting to me. Everything that was outside of my circle of control was coming to me, and I had no way of stopping it. And that's why my anxiety levels were just out of control. So letting people be doesn't mean tolerating mistreatment or neglecting your needs. Okay, let's just remember that. It's about setting boundaries in a healthy way. For example, you might say, I'm not okay with being disrespected, without trying to change the person who is disrespecting you. Because at the end of the day, guys, you're not going to change them. No matter how much you go kicking and screaming, no matter how many swear words you can throw at them, you're not going to change them. Setting a boundary allows you to protect your emotional space while accepting that others have their own journey, their own flaws and reasons for their behaviors. Everyone has a story. Everyone has their own form of trauma. Everyone has everyone has a story that's led them to where they are today. And we don't know that. We don't know everyone's story. So I guess this leads to the inner circle of what we can control. This is your personal space, okay? Your zone of power, you might call it. You've got the choices you make every day, all right? The way you respond to situations and how you manage your time and your energy. For example, you can control how you react when someone cuts you off in traffic. You definitely can, guys. I promise you. You can control whether you decide to exercise, how you prioritize your tasks, and whether you approach challenges with a growth mindset or a defeated one. And when I was writing these notes, that was something that really resonated with me. When I spoke a lot about this in my last episode about, being a victim or a creator. And this is all about that growth mindset or a defeated one. The beautiful Amy, who was a psychologist where I was staying in the mental health ward, really drummed this into us. I'd never heard of this before, being a victim and a creator. Um, it's just another way of saying, you wanted to be in a growth mindset rather than a defeated one. Being in a defeated mindset or in a victim mentality is only going to grow feelings of anxiety, depression, and being in a negative headspace. It's just going to further that gross, sad feeling. And that's not where we want to live. We want to live in a growth mindset, not in a defeated one. So here's the cool part. When you focus on the things you can control, you stop wasting energy on the things outside of your control. It's like cutting out all of that noise that drains you. The moment I stopped focusing on the things outside of my control, and I'm going to give you an example right now. In my renovation era, I can't control the fact that one of my trades can't come for a few days, which means I don't have gas, which means I can't really cook. So instead of being upset about that, I looked on TikTok how to fry an egg in a microwave. And guess what, guys? You definitely can fry an egg in a microwave and it works and it's yummy and you can eat. And I don't have to feel stressed about the fact that my trades can't come for a few days. So it's all about reframing your mindset and the way that you think on a daily basis. The more you focus on your inner circle, the more empowered you feel, because you're taking charge of your life in small but meaningful ways. And I think this is something we forget on a daily basis. We really, with life stresses, with taking care of the kids, with, being a present partner, daughter, whatever that may be, we really forget that we want to live our lives in a meaningful way. So the outer circle, what you can't control. Let's talk a little bit more about this. This is where things get a little bit tricky, I guess. We all know that there's a lot out there in the world that we just can't control, no matter how much we wish we could. And my God, do we wish we can control the things that we can't? It's human nature. We want to be in control. We want to be in the driver's seat, 2 hands on that steering wheel, full throttle, right? You can't control how people behave, how the economy fluctuates, or whether your flight gets delayed, all right? These things are just way out of your control. But guess what? It's totally okay. Something else you can't control is people's opinions of you either. In fact, trying to control the uncontrollable is often what causes stress, anxiety, and frustration. All of these feelings are going to lead to us not living a fulfilled and happy life. When we fixate on things beyond our reach, we end up feeling powerless and overwhelmed and bloody drained. Guys, I tell you what, when I am feeling stressed, overwhelmed, physically, I feel sick. I feel nauseous. I feel drained of energy. I have zero energy to even walk up and down the stairs, let alone write an email or have a proper conversation with my boyfriend. I feel so not present. It's not funny. When we accept that certain things are out of our hands and focus on our response instead, we can maintain our peace of mind. You can't control someone else's bad mood, all right? But you can control how you show up in that situation. Just like you can't control a stormy day, but you can decide to bring your own sunshine, or at least an umbrella. So why does all of this matter? By practicing circles of control, you essentially start living with intention. You stop spinning your wheels on things that don't serve you. And instead, you focus on what you can change. You realize that your power doesn't lie in controlling everything around you. It lies in how you show up in the world. And that's where fulfillment happens. And this is where we lead a stress-less life, because it's never going to be stress-free. We're never going to have an anxiety-free life. The moment I realize that I'm not going to ever be cured of my anxiety, I'm never going to be cured of my depression, it really put into perspective for me how I can lead a better life. The moment I realized I can't change that I'm living with an anxiety and depressive disorder. Yeah, I'm medicated, and yeah, I can do things like meditation and somatic therapy and all, CBD training. All of these things can help me. So that's in my circle of control. But factors out of my control, like, if my car breaks down, if something really emotional happens in my family life, all of these things are inevitable, all right? Taxes, getting sick, death, all of these things are inevitable and they're going to happen regardless. So the moment I take back my own control and remembering those boundaries, I take back that control of my anxiety. The main reason that we get anxious and that feeling of anxiety is losing control. But what are we losing control of? We're losing control of the things that we never actually had control of in the first place. Anxiety is stressing about the things majority of the time that haven't even happened yet. And when I feel anxious and when I feel like I'm spiraling, I take a step back. I remember my boundaries and I remember what is inside of that circle of control. When we get good at recognizing where we have influence and what is in our circle of control, we become more mindful of our thoughts, feelings, and actions. This leads to healthier relationships, better decision-making, and a deeper sense of inner peace. And the beauty of all of this, the more you practice, the more you have a sense of control over your own life. So how can we start using circles of control to live a more fulfilled life? I hear you asking it, so I'm going to tell you. Acknowledge what's actually in your circle. All right, guys. So just take 5 minutes after you listen to this episode, write it down in your journal, take out your phone, get your notes app, open it, take a moment to think about what's currently causing you stress or anxiety. Is it something you can change, or is it something you need to let go of? This is something I remind myself on the daily. Spend time focusing on what's actually in your control, all right? When you spend time focusing on what you actually can control, you'll realize just how much you've been spending time on the shit that, number one, you can't change, and number two, is causing you so much stress and anxiety. Number two, shift your mindset. If you can't control something, stop bloody fighting it. Instead, ask yourself, how can I respond in a way that aligns with my values? This week's Monday Mindfulness, if you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it now. I talk about values in depth. That simple shift can reduce stress and bring you back to your center. Number three, take action on what you can control. You don't have to overhaul your whole life. Just make small changes in areas where you can make an impact. You'd be surprised how much more in control you feel when you start taking consistent action. Like, instead of taking action when shit hits the fan, if you are consistently aware of all of that, it is amazing just how much more calmer you will feel. Number 4, let go of the rest. Once you've done what you can, let go of the things that are out of your hands. Trust that you're doing your best and that worrying about the rest won't actually change anything. When you embrace the practice of circles of control, you'll start to notice this shift, guys. And I really promise you that. Just even if you just set yourself the goal of doing this for a week and being really, really consistent with it, I promise you're going to see it shift in that week. Life will feel less like a chaotic mess of things happening to you and more like a series of situations you're navigating with intention and awareness. And that's when you get to start truly living a more empowered, grounded, and fulfilled life. And that's the life that we all want to lead. So for this week, I challenge you to practice the circles of control. Identify the areas where you're giving away too much of your energy and things beyond your control. Start shifting that focus to the things you can change. Trust me, you'll feel lighter, more focused, and more in control of your own life.
Dear Dom, I have a question for you.
Dear Dom.
Welcome to Dear Dom, where your burning questions meet my no-holds-barred advice. Whether you're navigating love, work, or that weird neighbour situation, I'm here to dish out wisdom with a side of sass. I really, really love this part of Mad Woman because it means I'm interacting with you guys, the listeners, the community. That is what we're all about here at Mad Woman, the podcast. Now, this week I was inundated with Dear Doms. Every week that I post on the Instagram, if you guys haven't followed yet, make sure you head over and follow. I really love going through these because I feel like this is where you guys just kind of do a little mental dump and things that are kind of worrying you that maybe you don't have anyone else to go to or ask about. I really feel that strong connection to you guys, and I feel honored that you feel the need to come and ask me. So there are a few this week, but I wanted to get through them because I think they're really interesting. And I think this is more of a personal one to me in terms of like my situation and what I've just gone through. But dear Dom, do you think certain people liked that you were unwell and couldn't actually deal with you recovering? When I read this, guys, to say I was shooketh to my core and this was like a fucking aha moment to me, mate. Where do I even begin with this? This really got me thinking a lot. I know, there's a thing of people wanting to be fixers and like when people around them aren't as strong as themselves. And when, people get back on their feet, they don't know how to deal with that, right? And I know this person asked this question in terms of my situation, going through my friendship breakdowns, breakups. It really made me think a lot. And the short answer to the question is, yeah, I do think that there are people out there that liked the fact that I was unwell, liked the fact that they could use that as an excuse, that I was mentally unstable or going through things or not present. I think to a certain extent, people in my life, no longer in my life, liked the fact that I wasn't present, liked the fact that I wasn't well at that time and took advantage of me. In last week's episode, dealing with friendship breakdowns, one of the main things that I said to you guys to do if you were going through a friendship breakdown was reflect on that friendship, the positives and the negatives. One major thing that I learnt reflecting on my friendship that is no longer a friendship was just how different that person was when times were good and when times were not so good. And the differing ways that person treated me as a human being, let alone a friend, but just as a human being. I do think that certain people like to throw it back into your face when you are mentally going through it. And I don't like the word unstable. It does describe a whole, spectrum of, I guess, what I went through personally. I'm going to talk about me personally. And I definitely was unstable at a certain point. And that's not a negative thing. I'm just kind of using it to describe myself at that time. Do I think that certain people like the fact that, they had that one up on me? 100%. Upon reflection and doing a lot of soul searching from then to now, I can definitely see how certain people in my life used that against me, especially when it came to the pointy end of things and things had to be, separated and we had to work things out and wipe our hands of certain things. I think that my mental health was definitely thrown in my face a lot. And that's something that there's a lot of hurt there and there's still a lot of anger with that. But it's not something that I'm going to dwell on for the rest of my life. But I really thought that this question was really interesting because I think, a lot of our Mad Woman community here, whether it's you've been told you're too much, you're too loud, you're just, oh my God, you're being over dramatic. You overthink everything. Like all of these negative connotations that are, put upon women who are passionate and who are feisty. We often get that thrown into our faces. And it's often at our weakest point that certain people in our lives feel the need to throw that back at us. And yeah, I that was a really reflective question for me this week for Dear Dom. A more fun one though is, Dear Dom, help me tell my boyfriend I love him. Now, wow, this takes me back to how I told JB that I loved him. I think the best way to tell the person you love that you love them is you can, if you are feeling a little bit apprehensive to actually use the words, there are ways that you can do it in acts of service, physical touch, all of those things. But I guess the best way to do it is when you feel comfortable. You will know in your heart and soul when is the right time to tell that special person that you love them. And it could just be while you're doing your groceries. It could be while you're sitting on the couch. It doesn't have to be a moment of, oh my God, I'm going to sit them down now and have this conversation and say that I love you. It doesn't need to be like that. Just throw that in the bin. Get that out of your mind. It can be in the most, simple of a situation. You could be in the kitchen cooking. You could be going for a stroll, walking to the letterbox to get the mail together. I don't know. But that to me, it's in those small moments, I think, that are the most beautiful and the most memorable. So that brings this week's episode of Mad Woman to a close. I really hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode and you really take the challenge of practicing your circles of control. And I promise you will lead into next week being more fulfilled, less stressed, and remembering your boundaries. Write them down, open your notes, get your journal out. Have a great week, guys. I can't wait to speak to you next week. Bye.